name's Lloyd Begley. I'm the Museum Curator. Come on in.
Hello, welcome. My name is Gordon Barnhart, and I am the Lieutenant Governor of Saskatchewan. I'm sitting behind an early 20th century mahogany desk in the study at Government House in Regina. Saskatchewan has always been a place of big dreams and larger-than-life characters. These remarkable people have played out those dreams on a vast prairie canvas. Today, I invite you to enjoy a new television series with the unique name, Yes, Gargoyles Do Live in Saskatchewan. The Architectural Heritage Society of Saskatchewan is the sponsor of this exciting series. Each year, I collaborate with the Society to present awards of excellence in architectural heritage. This series furthers the goals of the awards to stimulate interest in our history, to preserve meaningful places, and to educate our citizens. This series will take you to Saskatchewan cities, towns, villages, and the surrounding countryside. You will meet Saskatchewan people and hear their stories about the history, folklore, and built heritage of our beautiful province. I have always taken great interest in Saskatchewan's heritage, including this magnificent vice-regal house and our impressive legislative building. Join me today to discover the rich history of our province. You will experience a fascinating tapestry of stories woven together by Saskatchewan's people. I invite you to sit back, watch, and enjoy. And you know what? Gargoyles do live in Saskatchewan.
Welcome to Yes, Gargoyles Do Live in Saskatchewan, the show that puts you in touch with Saskatchewan's history, its people, and the places that made it all happen. In this episode, meet a pair of lovebirds who met in the darndest place, the Weyburn Psychiatric Center. And learn what it takes to be a museum curator. And finally, hear about the March West and retrace the trail the Redcoats took to Saskatchewan and see one of their early stations.
I started work at Saskatchewan Hospital Weyburn in September of 1952, and I worked as a student and then as an assistant supervisor and a supervisor. Spent a total of 35 years, retired in October of 88.
Hello, my name is Joe Robillard. I was industrial painter at the Saskatchewan Hospital in Weyburn. I worked there for a period of 35 years to my retirement. It was quite an experience. We had a staff of about 6 men in all, and yeah, it was quite interesting.
Well, when we came in the front door, up a few steps, and this was all administration, and at the end of the hall there was the golden staircase, which was something that you don't see everywhere. And
Golden staircase, what's that?
that was a main stairway from B floor to C floor that had brass, whatever you call them, at the front of the steps all the way up, and wrought iron railing with some brass on it on each side. And then C floor was open. You went up the stairs, and it was an open sort of a, I don't know if you call it a balcony or whatever. So that was one of the first things you'd see as you come in the front door. But then the long hallways, when you first are in there, you wonder if you'll ever find your way around.
The very first thing I look at, of course, are the windows at the hospital. As you know, it would be a 1 mile to walk around the building if you're hugging all the corners. exactly a mile. So I'm going to be 5,280 feet, of course. so it's quite a number, you know. And you're saying like look at the size of this building, but you know, I mean, if you go up 3 stories, in some areas it was one, you know, A, B, and C, and on other parts of the building there are A, B, C, and D, and then also up to E floor. So I mean, I always used to think, well, when we're hanging the scaffold way up on E floor because we're going to be painting windows. You know, this is in May, and we'd move out in early May, and of course we worked outside all summer.
But then after you get used to it, and the distance didn't seem much. From center core there was a long hallway to both the southeast and the southwest wings. And that was sort of like a visiting corridor, where when patients had visitors they would meet there. And then from there you went into the wards. 1B on one side and 2B on the other side.
I suppose it was a lot of fun working there because, like the staff, you know, I mean, you knew almost everyone, or I knew almost everyone, I suppose, because I did begin working on the wards as an aide, and I worked on the wards for a short time until I went on to maintenance, and so by the time I went on to maintenance, I had learned, you know, I mean, to know quite a few people, you know, who I worked with, also on the nursing staff.
This is the picture of my graduation back in 1956.
What impressed me about the building was the size of it, really. You know, like you had never seen a building so huge, you know, and to say, well, we have to do it. Well, you didn't have to do it all in 1 year. I believe, I mean, we did the building in, I think it took 5 years, you know, like to go around it, to do all the windows in it. And, you know, of course, that was only summertime work.
Mm-hmm.
I was working afternoons on the admission ward, and there happened to be a patient there that always had trouble, supposedly had trouble sleeping, and had all kinds of silly ideas. And I thought, well, I'll be good. I'll phone for a prescription in case, and you know, she needs it because she was wanting something. And I called down to the head nurse's office, and the person there was didn't think that was a good idea that I should bother with. Anyway, she said, just give her an aspirin. And I didn't realize it, but she was looking through the window from the day room into the office, and the patient must have seen the look on my face, and she come around and says, you didn't get it? I said, oh yes, I did. And so I gave her the aspirin, and she went to bed, and I thought, I hope she raises heck all night long so that they have to call the doctor. I thought to myself. Next day I come to work, read the report, had a beautiful sleep. So the aspirin did the trick.
That's right. In the basement of the building, right on the plaster wall, we had a patient who was admitted in the early 50s. And of course, I knew the patient quite well. He started painting on the walls about what happened in the early 30s. Mm. So there's a picture of a freight train, you know, or a train, and of course some of these guys riding the freight train like they used to do in the 30s. And then also in the picture, what he had, I mean, was a salmon can, I mean, with a thing on it, 5 cents. And I suppose that's what it cost to buy a tin of sardines, I guess. And of course, he had all these little things, you know. But it depicted, the picture depicted about the 30s. Guys riding on like the box cars, and on the riot in Regina, like RCMP riot in Regina. that was the picture that he really painted, and it was an excellent job. You know.
This is our book of Under the Dome, printed in 1986. This particular picture was taken in the early 50s, before the renovation of the roof and the lawn. This is the new building. This is a picture of 3 staff of the activity department. I'm in the middle. Oh, I feel badly that the building is going down, but there's no need to have a huge building that's of no use.
Okay, very good.
Hi, my name is Jackie Mallory. I'm the curator manager of the Soo Line Historical Museum in Weyburn. And within the museum, we house the Weyburn Mental Hospital artifacts. And through people like Anne, who's been a great help giving us background information and doing research on the hospital, we have been able, over the years, to set up this display. And it encompasses a little bit of an areas from all different parts of the museum, of the hospital, starting with, we have full documentation and pictures of all the graduates. We have pictorial history of the hospital. We have some of the equipment here that's been used. We just have a wide variety of things that were used and utilized out at the hospital. We have received some of the films that were used for training, and Anne might have even seen some of these films. These are National Film Board films that were used when they had the training there, and some of these were recovered from the demolition crew. After it was decided the hospital would be closing, the hospital was contacted, and the museum went out there and spent quite a bit of time going through the hospital archives, and some of the things could not be brought here that were of a sensitive nature, but what you see laid out in this room was brought here. Little bits of everything just to represent how the hospital operated, why it did some of the things that they did out there. The hospital was a very integral part of Weyburn. A lot of local people were employed there, and over the years, up to, I think, was it 1986, it was determined there had been 20,000 people who had worked out there. Obviously not all from Weyburn, but you can tell that was a huge factor on a city this size. So it was decided there should be a permanent display somewhere, and this was a logical place to have it, just representing the hospital, showing all what had went on there. As I mentioned before, we have a list of all the graduates from the program, and that it was just a very important thing to do so that when the building went down, it would not be forgotten. And we're just hoping that people will stop in, take a look, and see what really went on out there. It wasn't just a hospital, it was a community. In talking to Anne and other people that worked out there for many years, it was a community on its own, and was self-sufficient. And so many of the people that worked out there, Anne included, met her husband out there. It was just quite a way of life for people. Well, part of our mandate at the museum here is to preserve and protect anything that was utilized in Weyburn and trading areas past. So if we get something in here that was used in Calgary or in Vancouver, that's not pertinent to us. We have in here what was utilized by people from around here. So that's our first thing is we collect what's pertinent to Weyburn. And once we collect something, then we have to preserve and protect it, and there's different ways depending what it is. We have an archives room that's thermostatically and humidity controlled. So we have newspapers in there from the early 1900s. We have papers from the mental hospital, various things, hundreds of books that are all kept perfectly preserved in that room. Some people wonder why we have museums, what the necessity of it is, and anybody that works in a museum feels that if you do not keep it perfectly protected, it'll be gone and you'll never retrieve that back. And it shows you how far we've come when you see what we have from the past. It's a passion when you're involved with a museum. It's not everybody's thing to be involved with a museum. It's a lot of hard work, a lot of thankless hours for what we do, but it becomes a passion for us. Most museums you'll see are in buildings that don't have a lot of windows. That's for a reason. Daylight, sunlight really plays havoc on artifacts, especially papers and clothing. So most museums don't have windows, which you see we don't have any windows whatsoever. Light is such an important factor that we shut the lights off in between visits. Anytime a visitor has left, we shut the lights off to protect the artifacts. And we are in a heated building year-round versus some places shut the heat off during the winter. And in our case, we're open year-round, so we don't have to shut the heat off, which can affect artifacts with the fluctuation in the heat and the cold. So I'd like to invite you into our Charles Wilson Silver Collection room. This is an outstanding collection, and it shows how preservation and conservation works in a museum. When you see a collection of this magnitude, you realize there's a lot more work involved in it just looking pretty. So I'll invite you in to come and take a look. This is the world's largest privately owned silver collection. One man's collection from north of Weyburn was his passion, and he collected not only silver, he collected fine china, antiques, brass, anything that he deemed to be beautiful in his eyes, he collected it. And we are so grateful to have a collection like that here. However, it does take a lot of work to manage a collection like this. The cabinets have to be somewhat airtight because of furnaces. In the wintertime is the worst, is hard on the silver. Then you're polishing it more often than it actually needs. It's tarnishing quicker. We have the airtight cabinets. When they are not airtight, we have them sealed with tape so that it keeps the air out. We have tags inside that help with oxidizing the air, so it helps prevent tarnishing as quickly as it can happen. And we also have silica gel packs inside which absorb the humidity, which in the summertime we don't have air conditioning here and it can get very hot. So we do need those silica gel packs to keep the humidity down inside each of the cabinets. Everything is cleaned at least once a year. If it sits out on display, it'll be cleaned more than once. And we're trying to alleviate that because some of these pieces are hundreds of years old, and every time you polish, it just takes a little bit more off each time. Oh. So we had changed our method of cleaning about 1.5 years ago, and it's been very effective. Previously, we used Silvo as a commercial cleaner, and upon researching that with the Canadian Conservation Institute, we found that it's not working the way it should, and it is removing a fine layer of silver every time we do it. So we have switched to something called calcium carbonate, which is also known as precipitated chalk. We mix it with water and make a paste, and we clean it that way. And then after it's been cleaned, we wash and dry it, and then let it sit for a while to make sure it's completely dry before we put it back in the showcases. If you're choosing a career to work at a museum, it's a wonderful thing. I enjoy it very much. Working with things from the past, things I've never seen before, knowing that my grandparents or great-grandparents use these things in everyday life. The history comes alive when you look at something or research something, and it's a wonderful thing, and it's a passion. It's
Shirley Millions, and we are here in Estevan, Saskatchewan, in front of the Northwest Mounted Police barracks and our museum. So this post here was referred to as the Wood End post. It was called Wood End because where it was originally stationed was the end of all firewood. Due to prairie fires, there was no natural wood past the post where we were stationed. So the original building that you see here was originally at the bottom of Boundary Dam. So where Boundary Dam is now, in the valley, that's where the post was originally stationed. It was moved in the 1800s to preserve it, and then the dam was filled. Wood End Post was a common resting ground for the Northwest Mounted Police when they made their trek west, and also for people who traveled on the Boundary Commission Trail. It was a common resting ground to refurbish supplies, to rest, and it was a place where wood could be gathered for the rest of the journey. Originally, Wood End was a shelter to supply wood, hay, and repairing equipment for the British North America Boundary Commission when it had been sent out in the year 1872 to survey Canadian land. The Northwest Mounted Police first association with Wood End was during the March West in 1874. In 1893, a one-story frame building